All right, and welcome to another episode of Physical AI powered by Phygital, where artificial intelligence meets the real world. Together with scientists and founders, we explore how machines and human behavior converge into space. And today I have a special guest, very excited to sync again with Jiaxin Wei. Jiaxin, how are you today?
Yeah, it's very cool. Now I'm in Munich and it's night. It's very nice.
Well, thank you so much. I remember a couple of months ago we had a chat, right? And I'm really humbled and excited to truly have this conversation with you, right? Allow me here to introduce Jiaxin Wei. Jiaxin Wei is a PhD student at TUM, Technische Universität München. You guys might hear, I lived quite some time in Munich, so it's home to me.
Yeah.
Researching 3D vision, object level perception, and SLAM, which are core and building blocks, right, for spatial intelligence. Jaishin is author of GS Fusion, RAL 2024, which is a high impact reviewed journal published by IEEE, Robotics Autonomous Society, which combines 3D Gaussian splatting and volumetric mapping for a real time photorealistic scene reconstruction. Sizing experience across Tencent, Media Group, DPVR, Bridging Academy research with robotics and VR application. And she has work published at ICRA, IROS, RAL, as I mentioned, ECCV workshops, and others, all primarily focused on advancing 3D reconstruction and geometric pose estimates. Jeshin, you ready to share some knowledge bombs here with our audience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the warm welcome and the detailed introduction. It's my honor to share my some thoughts and insights during my work with everyone.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. So let's kick off things. So, robots mapping versus human maps, right? So your work at GS Fusion creates basically what we can read two maps at once. One is the traditional TSDF map, which is excellent for robots navigation, and the other one is more photorealistic 3D Gaussian splatting, so more immersive with more anchor points, right? So why is this hybrid approach actually so relevant? So why not have just one map and make that one, let's say, the default map? What does this actually dual representation of maps, right? Mean? Why is this more beneficial for robots or for humans to interpret and see the world? I'm really curious about your reflections here.
Yeah, so this is a very core question. So people really more prefer simple map to represent everything and do every task in just one single simple map. But the short answer here is that robots and humans currently are fundamentally different and often they have different requirements for a map. So for example, the robot vacuumer in your house, it doesn't care what's the color of your carpet if the chair is realistic. It just needs to know, is this space occupied? Can it freely go through it? And where is the surface? But humans are quite different. Humans are visual animals. We want to see not only geometrically perfect, but also texture-rich map because we need the photorealization. And on the one hand, so you already have the traditional, for example, the TSDF fusion we use in the GS Fusion page. This is the workhouse for the robotics community. It builds a 3D grid, and for each point in that grid, it stores a distance to the near surface. It's fast and geometric accurate, but and super for robot path planning. But as you can see in our paper, the visual result, the extracted map is very basic, and sometimes it's very coarse. On the other hand, we have this incredible emerging technology, 3D splatting. This what gives us very photorealistic real-time renderings. But the limits of the 3D GS is the limits of 3D GS is it was originally designed for offline use, and when adapted for online mapping, it has its own problems. So it's very computationally massive, requiring updates to millions of Gaussians or parameters. So this can make it very hard to run on robot with limited power. So we decided why not to do both. So we build a hybrid system where two maps can actually help each other. So first we build the robots map, lightweight oak tree based TSDF map, just as would use. Then we build a humans map, use the robots map as a guide. So this is the key insight of this paper. The biggest problem with online 3D GS is knowing where and when to add a new Gaussian splat in the 3D space. Most of the methods just add them everywhere based on pixels, which is incredibly efficient, we would say. So we do two things different. We first use a quadrant on the 2D image. So it's more like a 2D segmentation method to only add new Gaussian areas with high visual details. So here in our method, we based on the contrast of the image cells. So we don't need Gaussians to represent a black white wall. Before we add any new Gaussian, we check the robot's TSDF map first. Has this 3D location already been mapped? Is there already a surface here? So this check will prevent us from adding thousands of redundant Gaussians for the same surface. So this hybrid approach makes our 3D GS map extremely compact and efficient. So in our experiments, our model size not only smaller than previous work, but also the mapping speed is faster than before. So we threshold for a robotic system. So for the physical AI, this means the single system on a drone can, when it moves, it can build one unified digital twin that is both geometrically accurate for navigation or path planning, and also photorealistic for a human supervisor or operator to visualize it. So I would say more like a bridge between the robotic and visualization. So that's the insight we find from this paper.
So basically, by being a more, let's say, intelligent and context aware, right? So
Yeah.
understanding also the semantics of it, right? We are providing more information, and you said in real time to the actual robots, but also then right now the use cases are for machines such as drone or robots, or maybe even other new forms of embodiments of AI, right? But that also leads into opening up new opportunities, right, that are coming on the horizons, such as embodiments in any form of VR or AR, which would then prompt in a photorealistic way, in a contextual aware way, important prompts for human beings, right, to now navigate in an augmented way the real world, right, Jiaxin?
Yes, that's totally true. That's my insight, and I'm really glad that I conveyed to you quite
I mean
precise.
this is, you're preaching to the chorus here at Phygital, right? That's exactly our mission, and that to merge physical digital for humanity, right? To engage with the physical world in an enriched way, specifically, obviously, in an enriched way with the goal of relating and fostering community. That's what we believe in. So congratulations on your work here regarding this next gen of mapping. Speaking of humans, right? Because it is implied when we talk about mapping, large world model, physical AI, we primarily think obviously of machines, right, and an embodiment of intelligent, truly artificial intelligence in machines, right? Have you already run some cases for humanity? What type of use cases have you guys been ideating or thinking about where human being will benefit from such a enriched mapping and information?
Yeah, so I think I can use the EU project I'm currently working on at Apple. So simply speaking, it's like it's a ship vessel inspection task. So because times the ship, when it's like really old and for many years, there are some defects and erosions inside the vessels, and human supervisors or human operators, they need to go into a phase to check those erosions like manually and go through the vessels or components one by one. So this quite dangerous, and people were killed during this kind of operation. So our idea, our funding is trying to use drones to send out drones to automatically explore those vessels, and at the same time build a 3D map of those vessels and detect the erosions just using deep learning or artificial intelligence to save some lives in those tasks. So here, this is also the one of the application of our work here. We build the geometric map for the drone. So here we are specifically using 3D geometric map for the drone to do the path planning and automatic navigation inside the vessels. And at the same time, we also build a 3D photorealistic map to send back to the human supervisors. So when the people are like, for example, they are visualizing the build 3D map outside the ship in a remote place, it's safe for them to see the 3D environment in real time and also realistic. So the human supervisors can find some missing spots, for example, those small defect or erosion on the surface of the vessels. So human can help the robots to find out some missing spots, because it knows that deep learning method, they are not like 100% accurate or precise on the detection results. So human also help them to increase the detection accuracy to some extent. So this is one of the application I would say that needs the geometric map and the photorealistic map.
And that is an excellent example when we talk about replacement on job or enhancement of jobs. Here we can see, right, firsthand where applied intelligence, right, specifically a physical applied intelligence, right, enriches the actual workforce on one hand to reduce risks. Because we have a robot that obviously has the necessarily intelligence to navigate safely and make certain predictions, right? In this case, the drone, right? And then on the other hand, it collaborates with human being hand in hand, right? And that the bond basically creates a very strong and safe result in its actual process itself, right? In its actual job itself, right? That is very very compelling. All right, that is a very intriguing finding and research. Congrats on that, right? So let's move on into imagination, right? AI's imagination, right? So I was pretty compelled about the follow-up that you had regarding GSFI X3D, which usually uses diffusion models, right? Which is the same that AI uses behind any generative tool, like the famous Stable Diffusion, to, let's say, repair holes, right? So artifacts in our 3D map, right? So this sounds this GSFI X3D sounds like a system that is imagining parts of the world that it hasn't actually truly like seen, right? How does explain us how does this work, and how do you ensure that what you mention as imaginate data is actually useful and reliable for robots within the physical world, and not just creative imagination and hallucinations, right?
So this actually, this extension of the GSFix 3D actually is the extension of our previous work, the GS, because we find out when we build the map using the collected image data, we find the visualization or the rendering of the 3D GS map looks very very photorealistic and very perfect along the training trajectory or the trajectory we collect the data. Once we deviate from the trajectory, the 3D rendering looks quite bad, I would say. So that's the holes you can see in the map or in the results in our paper. So here we use a generative model to try to fix those holes. So a generative model is not so if it's just hallucinate, it's useless for a robot because it's dangerous. It imagines something that it's not in the world. So the key here is not just to generate, but to constrain the generation with everything we already know about the real world. So as we fly a drone or work with, we'll always miss some spots or some parts of the 3D space. There are occlusions. For example, when we scan through a indoor environment, we cannot scan the back part of those furniture. So for example, we don't know what's behind that couch, or there are sometimes there are some reflective surface, windows and mirrors, and also just simply some regions with sparse data. So in the 3D map, those appear as very big black holes. And also there are floaters and other artifacts comes from the 3D GIS techniques. So for a human, it breaks the immersion, or we would say it's just not that photorealism. So for also a critical failure, because it cannot plan a path through a region of pure unknown. So we thought we already have this incredibly powerful tool, those diffusion models. So they have already learned the prior of what the real world looks like. So what if we could use their tool here? So the full system, our GSFix 3D, involves taking these repaired 2D images and using them to optimize the 3D map itself. But the core map is in the 2D repair model. Here we call it. So here, this is where it gets really interesting and directly connects back to our first paper. We call it conditioning here. So we don't just feed model with the broken or bad 3D GS renderings. We also feed it a rendering from the geometrically accurate mesh here. We build with, so this is the dual map we got from the GS Fusion. So the diffusion model actually gets two inputs. One is the photorealistic appearance, but it has the holes. The second input is our mesh. It's geometrically consistent structure, but it's and with low details. So by giving it input, we are telling the model, I want you to fill in this hole, but the content should look like the rest of the 3D GS rendering, and it must adhere to the underlying geometry provided by the mesh. So this heavily constrains the hallucination, grounding it in our physical measurements. And also another, I would say it's a quite genius small augmentation trick. So here to make it really good, I had to teach it what a hole is. So during the fine-tuning stage, we take our good training images and randomly cut out pieces using semantics mask just to mimic or replicate the bad 3D GS rendering images. So this forced the model to learn how to plausibly implement those missing regions, not just clean up the. So the results are quite nice. In our test, our GS fixer was able to fill in large windows and remove floating artifacts and even create plausible places where there was just a black hole. And because this is all distilled back into the 3D GS map, the robot's internal world model is now more complete. So for physical AI, this is I would call reasoning. So the agent combines what it saw from the 3D GS map or the mesh data with what it knows about the world. So this is the prior from the diffusion models. So combine both, it can create more complete and actionable model for reality. It's a huge step towards a truly robust.
And in terms of Jiaxin, the actual reconstruction of that hole, is there any form of assessing the actual reality check? So imagine that obviously a robot is walking across a space that was reconstructed through your finding, right? But what if the reconstruction actually does not fit what the actual, for instance, surface is reflecting, right? Do you have a weighting system there that provides a certain assessment on probability of actual reality, or how are you thinking of it?
So currently, because our method is more like a repair method, so currently we cannot expect it to, like, for example, feel large. So for example, if your map 50% or 60% parts are missing, so if you are missing a large part of the 3D space, it's more like a generative task, not a repair task. So here we expect 3D GIS map is already like near complete, but with some missing small parts, for example, the holes or the parts you didn't scan during your data collection phase. So if you have those small parts that are missing, we can fine-tune diffusion model using your collected data. So your data actually is your physical proof of your 3D work. So because it's ground truth, it's accurate, it's what you already collected from the reality. So we use those ground truth data to fine-tune the diffusion model to try to ground the imagination of the model, so they won't go like particularly deviate from the content from your environment. So I would say the fine-tuning actually it's the core magic here.
And what is the possible time to repair? I assume in your experiments, time to repair is fundamental. I mean, if we talk about the drones, right, that are surfacing an area, right? So I assume that this is almost like real time in order to have actually the actual value, right? Or what can you share with us about that?
Yeah. So currently, this repair method is more like a post-processing method. So currently, don't speed it up or make it real time. So the previous work, the GS Fusion, it's a real time system. So we get the data, or for example, we build the map online using the GS Fusion, and you observe some holes in the online map. Then we can use this GSFix 3D as a post-processing method to repair it. So time you mentioned is quite critical, and we also test the running time, or for example, the fine-tuning time you need to just fine-tune your different model. So for example, the GPU card I use is 3060 here. So on a customer GPU, so for example, everyone can buy it. You don't have to use a very expensive, for example, H100 or A100. So very basic and consumer level GPU. You just fine tune the model, for example, for 2 hours, or if you want a better quality, may extend the training time a little bit longer to 4 hours. You can already get a quite nice diffusion model to fix the thing. So yes, I think this is a test time we got from our experiment, and we also record the exact results in the paper.
That's pretty compelling. Congratulations. So we go from a much more intelligent mapping system that allows a series of machine and machine with human interactions to a on-the-fly repair system in order for a machine to actually have no blind spots, if you so want, right? And let's talk about maybe digital twins, right? So if we go Yeah, if we go beyond what we just discussed, like the mapping and the repair for what you have done in the previous work, right? What does the next generation of digital twin look like? So what I mean with it is that the fields of robotics and computer vision have spent now decades of trying to solve scene understanding, object detection, and navigation as a separate problems. We're curious to understand how does the future of vision of physically grounded digital twin unify these, let's say, classical challenges?
Yeah, so actually this direction is I'm incredibly passionate about, and it really gets to the why behind my previous work. So for decades, robotics has operated with a very fragmented stack. For example, navigation use a simple 2D or 3D TSDF map, then it would have a completely separate system for perception running, for example, an object detector, then a segmentation model, or a pose estimator, and then it might have another system for planning. So all those modules were developed in isolation and stitched together afterwards, which is also, I would say, it's the reason why some robotic behavior can also always feel like really slow and brittle. But the real world isn't a pipeline of separate problems. So it's one unified and physically interacting system. My vision is that for AI's internal model, so we are talking about the digital twin here, must also reflect this truth. Previous work like GS Fusion and GS Fix 3D was already focused on solving the first part of the puzzle, so create a geometrically accurate and visually complete map. We now have already a stage that looks perfect. So the next step would to make the stage physical. So this means the digital twin is not just a mesh or a bunch of splats. It's a rich and database of physical reality. So what does this mean? So it means that for every this environment, the twin doesn't just store its shape and color, but its intrinsic physical properties. So here I would think of two properties quite important for the physically grounded digital twin. So the first one it would be, so for example, it's not just a collection of points. It will be a chair, a table, or anything that human has a concept or has a definition of it. And the second would be physics. So this is the key. So the twin would encode, for example, the material. So is this surface made of wood or metal? And also mass and friction. How heavy is this mask? Or if I push it, will it slide or flip? And also articulation is also quite important. This is a huge point. So the cabinet, for example, it's not just a static box. Understand it as an object that rotates on a hinge with specific joints. So when your digital twin is this read model, those classic AI challenges you mentioned aren't separate tasks to be solved anymore. They become emergent problems that you can just read from the itself. So, and this is what it unlocks, moving the robot from to true physical. The old robot's planner would see a 2D map and just find a path from A to B. If a chair is its way, the path is blocked. Then end of the story. But the new robot, the one consuming this physical twin, can reason. And ask internal world model, what happens if I apply, for example, 5 newtons of force to this chair? The model can perform a rapid forward flow simulation, but a near instant calculation based on the chair's mass, friction, and also the floor's properties. And the answer, the chair will slide, for example, 30 centimeters. The robot's plan is no longer just a move from A to B. They plan on first approach the chair, second apply force to change the state of the world, and the last one is is to plan the path and move to the point B. So this is the future I'm working toward, a world where robots don't just work but understand it, they will understand physics of our homes, our office, and our buildings. So the function of our, also the functions of our daily objects and the consequence of their own actions. So this is the real bridge between the digital and the physical, I would say.
That is very, very compelling. Outstanding. Well, thank you so much, Jiaxin. I appreciate your time. Congratulations on your work. Allow me to ask you one more future back question to wrap up things here, right? So we have been discussing quite some intriguing and compelling topics you've been working on, right? So these to us is every time that you work on is almost like today's breakthroughs, right? Today's researches we are working on, right? Why don't you share with the audience your personal view, right? When physical AI meets and becomes part of our everyday life, right, where humanity actually is has the benefits of being involved on one hand with intelligence machine, but also having a layer on top of our real world that is perceived, that it is understood, right? So what do you think will be this change for human being? Where's the benefit here that you foresee, right, where we as a human being, let's say 5 years down the road, maybe 10 years down the road, right, can truly benefit from? What's your vision here, Jiaxin?
So I would say this will relieve some really heavy labor here. So for those like the agents, we can deploy those. For example, I will mention again my funding project. So it will replace some human beings work in those very dangerous environments. So we don't have to risk our lives to, just to do those tasks. We can deploy the robots. It will automatically understand the physical world and also perform the task that we want them to do. So it's not just the ship vessel inspection, or probably some like rescue in the car accidents, natural disasters, for example, the floods or the storm. So for those like very dangerous and high risk environments, I would say the robots or the humanoids, the agents, will help us a lot there.
All right, so innovation will bring here at this point safety. It will alleviate us from risky activities in an intelligent way, right? And that's definitely a strong angle every time that innovation is on the market, right? The angle of security in general, right, is phenomenally important. Well, Jiaxin, amazing. How can the audience stay in touch with you? What's the best way to connect? Are you on X or something else? What's the best way to connect?
So I think I put my homepage on my Google Scholar page, and also because I released the code of my work, so you can also find me on the GitHub, and also, or if you just want to save some time, just send me my two
All right,
accounts.
Jiaxin, what a pleasure to learn with you and from you. Congratulations on your endeavor. Give it up for Jiaxin Wei, and I'll see you in the metaphysical world, Jiaxin. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Yeah, bye.